The streets of Caracas are silent, not because Venezuela is at peace, but because fear has replaced noise. Nicolás Maduro is gone, seized, removed, taken to the United States. For some, this feels like justice at last. For others, it feels like humiliation. For most, it feels like the ground has disappeared beneath their feet. People do not celebrate in public. They whisper behind closed doors. Because power in Venezuela did not vanish with one man. It stayed behind, armed, organized, watching. History teaches us something brutal. When a leader falls but the system survives, uncertainty becomes dangerous. And danger spreads faster than hope. I am Fareed Zakaria, and today I want you to pause with me, not to cheer, not to condemn, but to understand if you want to grasp how power truly works when regimes crack. Stay with me. Because this moment is not an ending. It is the beginning of a far more unsettling question. What happened in Venezuela is often described in simple terms. A dictator removed, a country liberated, a crisis resolved. But reality is never that clean. The real question is not whether Nicolás Maduro is gone. The real question is what remains, because states are not held together by presidents alone. They are held together by institutions, by security forces, by loyalties, by fear. Today, Venezuela exists in a dangerous in-between space. Maduro has been taken out of the picture. Yet his closest ally now holds power. The police patrol the streets. Journalists are detained. Armed civilians still operate in the shadows. For those who oppose Maduro, silence feels safer than celebration. For those who supported him, anger mixes with humiliation. And for millions of ordinary citizens, daily life grows more expensive, more tense, more uncertain. This is not a transition. It is a pause. And history tells us that pauses like this rarely last. To understand where Venezuela might be heading, we first need to understand how it arrived here. Not just politically, but structurally. That story begins long before this moment. To understand this moment, we have to step backward. Not days, not months, but decades, because Venezuela's crisis did not begin with Nicolás Maduro. Maduro inherited a system built under Chavismo, a system designed around loyalty, control, and survival. Under this model, power flowed downward. Food, medicine, jobs, all tied to political allegiance. Support the system and you were protected. Question it and you were excluded. Over time, this structure hardened. Institutions weakened. Independent voices disappeared. The economy shrank and millions of Venezuelans left their country behind. What remained was not just a government. It was a survival network. Security forces, armed civilian groups, officials who owed everything to the system, staying alive. This is why removing a leader is never enough. Because the system does not dissolve, it adapts. By the time Maduro was seized, Venezuela was already fragile, economically strained, socially exhausted, politically divided. So when the shock came, it did not create clarity. It exposed fault lines, and those fault lines were ready to break. That brings us to the first real rupture. The rupture came suddenly, and it came with violence. The operation that seized Nicolás Maduro was not symbolic. It was forceful. Dozens were killed. Security personnel, civilians, all caught in a moment that changed the country overnight. Maduro was taken alive, unharmed, waving as he arrived in the United States. For his supporters, that image mattered. It became a rallying point, a signal to stand tall, to resist, to take to the streets. For his opponents, the emotion was different. Relief, yes, but also restraint, because they understood something crucial. The man was gone, but the machinery remained. In Caracas and beyond, the streets filled with police patrols. Journalists were detained. Armed groups loyal to the old order did not disappear. This moment was supposed to feel like liberation. Instead, it felt suspended, unfinished, and that is the danger of shock events. They promise clarity, but often deliver confusion. If you want to understand why this crisis did not end here, you have to look deeper, past the headlines, past the personalities, into the system itself. What keeps a regime alive is rarely the man at the top. It is the system beneath him. In Venezuela, that system is layered. Political loyalty at the surface, economic dependency beneath it, and force at the core. For years, access to food, medicine, and basic survival was mediated by the state. Scarcity became a tool. Reward followed obedience. Punishment followed dissent. Security forces were not just protectors of order. They became stakeholders. Their survival depended on the regime's survival. Alongside them stood armed civilian groups, unofficial, unaccountable, but deeply loyal. This is why removing Maduro did not trigger collapse, because collapse requires the system to lose coherence. And this system still functions. Delcy Rodriguez did not rise by accident. She was Maduro's closest lieutenant, a product of the same structure, a guardian of continuity. So when police patrol the streets today, they are not improvising. They are enforcing familiarity. When journalists are detained, it is not chaos. It is reflex. This is how regimes endure shocks. They do not panic. They tighten. But what about the people? What about those who have lived under the weight of this regime? For them, the shock of Maduro's removal is mixed with something else. Fear. Fear of reprisals, fear of instability, fear that the future, which seemed bright for a moment, is now just another unknown. Rosa Contreras, a longtime supporter of Maduro, said it herself. If he can be taken like that, what happens to all of us? Her words speak to a deeper unease. This isn't just about one man. This is about the system and those who benefit from it. For Marcelo, a student in Caracas, the future is equally uncertain. He feels relief at Maduro's fall, but he also knows that his country has been broken for years. The economic toll, the inflation, the lack of basic goods, he wonders if this moment will bring real change, or if it is just another chapter in Venezuela's endless story of suffering. And then there is Jelaine Correa. She is ready to fight. She believes the U.S. has no right to dictate Venezuela's future. She says, "We are armed and we will not let this stand." Her defiance is a reflection of the tension that runs through the country. The sense that something is always on the verge of snapping. These voices remind us that Maduro's removal is not just a political event, it is a psychological one, a rupture in the fabric of Venezuelan society. And for those who have suffered, the consequences of this moment will not be measured by what happens next, but by what does not. Venezuela's crisis is not confined to its borders. The world is watching, and what happens next will have far-reaching consequences. But those consequences will not be limited to Venezuela alone. They will echo across Latin America, across global politics, across the very concept of sovereignty itself. The United States has made it clear. It intends to run Venezuela. President Trump's words have resonated in capitals around the world, but they also resonate deeply within Venezuela's borders. For some, this is a promise of stability, a way out of the chaos. For others, it is a reminder of past humiliations, of foreign intervention, of being told how to govern, how to live. The response from Venezuela's allies is not any clearer. Cuba mourns the loss of its closest ally. Russia has expressed its concerns. China, too, watches closely, weighing its options. But the impact is felt most deeply in the streets of Caracas. The city is still haunted by the aftermath of the U.S. strike. Shops are closed. The military is still on patrol. There are signs of life, but only just. And the global ripple effect is not just political. It is economic. Venezuelan markets are in turmoil. Inflation continues to spiral. Basic goods remain scarce. And the human toll is impossible to ignore. The U.S. Intervention might have been swift, but it was not clean. It has left a nation divided, and its consequences will be felt far beyond the borders of Venezuela. The future of Venezuela now hangs in the balance. 3 paths lie ahead, each leading the country down a different road. The first path is one of recovery. In this scenario, the U.S. intervention leads to a stable transition. A new government is formed, free from Maduro's influence. Reform takes root. The economy stabilizes, and the millions who fled Venezuela begin to return, rebuilding the nation alongside its people. This path is the one that everyone hopes for, but it is also the least certain. The forces that have kept Venezuela in a state of crisis for so long are deeply entrenched. It would take years, even decades, to undo the damage. The second path is one of fragmentation. In this scenario, Venezuela's political divisions widen. With no clear leadership, the country splits into factions. The government, backed by loyal military forces, continues to hold power, while opposition groups struggle to form a viable alternative. Street protests erupt, violence escalates. The economy collapses further, sending shockwaves through the region. This is a path to continued instability. The third path is one of complete collapse. The system that has held Venezuela together breaks apart. The country descends into chaos. Without a functioning government, entire regions fall into anarchy. The suffering of the people intensifies, and the hopes of a peaceful resolution fade away. This is the most devastating path, but it is also the most likely. As we stand at this crossroads, it is clear that the future of Venezuela is uncertain. One thing is certain, though. Venezuela's crisis is far from over. This moment in Venezuela is not just about politics. It's about survival. It's about the very structure that holds a nation together. There are many who still hope for a better future, who dream of rebuilding a country torn apart by years of economic collapse, political repression, and social unrest. But they must also face a brutal reality. The road ahead will be long, and the price of change will be high. For the Venezuelan people, it is not just about what happens to Maduro, or even what happens to the government. It is about whether the country can rebuild from the ground up. Can they create a system that works for everyone? Or will Venezuela continue down the path of division and decline? We have seen moments like this before in history, moments when regimes fall and nations must find a way to heal. But healing takes time. It requires trust. It requires reconciliation. And above all, it requires courage. Venezuela is at a crossroads. And how it moves forward will shape not only the future of the country, but the future of the entire region. As for us, all we can do is watch and hope that the people of Venezuela find the strength to rise above their fear and rebuild their future. But one thing is clear, the story of Venezuela is far from over. This is Fareed Zakaria, and you've been listening to a deeper analysis of the current crisis. We'll continue to watch what happens next and explore what the future may hold for Venezuela and the rest of Latin America.